Right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our voting work session. And for our viewing public, we're having dinner. Just a working dinner. We have some guests. So what bill do we go into? Where's Philip? 461.
Senate Bill 461, this is a procurement bill. It is fairly large. It does a lot of technical cleanup, follow-up from the legislation in 2017, and there are a few substantive provisions being done. The first being that it's authorizing general services in consultation with DBM and with the approval of Board of Public Works to establish fees for training, strategic sourcing, and administrative costs related to the use of eMaryland Marketplace. And then those funds for those fees would then be brought in to support the operations of the State Procurement Office. And then the other main substantive thing that is being changed is that it's transferring authority for reviewing the pricing of commodities sold by Maryland Correctional Enterprises from DGS to the Pricing and Selection Committee. And then MCE and the other two preferred providers, Blind Industries and Employment Works, are being all under the umbrella of that Pricing Selection Committee. I do have some folks from DGS here, and I've also, you should have their testimony on your desks, which does a pretty thorough page-by-page kind of all the different pieces that are being altered and changed.
They're not recommending any other changes at this point, right?
No, I'm here in case there's questions, because it's a lot of kind of small corrective and conforming changes.
Senator, you good with this, your setup now? Is it all good?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, colleagues, this bill actually is being introduced on the Senate side by me as the Senate representative on the Procurement Improvement Council. Delegate Nick Charles, who represents the House on that commission, has also introduced a cross-file of the bill. The commission, through its work over the past, I guess I've been on for about 6 months, has gone through a process with its membership, looking at the bill that was passed that actually changed the way that procurement is handled in the state since 2016, 2017. This bill is basically a cleanup bill that they have worked on as a commission and brought to our attention. So it is, as Philip explained, and they're here if you have any questions.
Very good. How's everybody feeling about this?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Good job. That's it. Hey, since we you were drug out here, you're welcome to go in the kitchen, grab a slice of pizza if you want on your way out.
Thank you, Senator.
Have a good night. All right, just for fun, let's do the one right below it.
Sorry, was that 461 that you just did?
473, Erica. It's
Right,
yours.
so you did 461.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so Senate Bill 473 makes some adjustments to the existing Maryland Innovation Initiative program, which deals with getting donations and basically endowed positions at various institutions of higher education. No amendments were put forth, so just going from the straight bill. What it does is, right now, every institution, public, private, is able to participate in this. However, I think the bill is coming in under the theory that the match that a school needs to, the donation that needs to be made in order to then participate in the program of $500,000 might be prohibitive against smaller campuses. So what the bill does is, for campuses that have a budget of less than $250 million, then that pledge is reduced from 500,000 to 200,000. And that is the bill.
So it's not adding any more money, but it's presumably helping some of the smaller campuses come into the program. Senator Young?
She said public and private, that includes the small private colleges.
Yes, everyone's included, and some of the small private colleges have received endowments under the current program, but everyone's already in.
Great, thanks.
So I'll let you know, my concern with this was about the money available, of course, then maybe splitting up into smaller parts and taking away from other entities and such, but I'm convinced that the fund has actually overperformed over the last couple of years. It has a minimum of, I think, $8.5 million that's supposed to be in the fund, but I think it's been running around $11 million. So it seemed like a reasonable time to try this out. All those in favor? You got it, Senator Edwards. That was for Mountain, Maryland. Always the consummate advocate. All right, let's go back to the front and begin at the beginning. 59, we've seen this one a couple times. Why don't you tell us the status of it, Senator McCray?
Colleagues, just a couple things. As he stated, this was a bill that was pre-filed that we're still dealing with, but February 24th, the MDTA board did take some action in reference to making sure that those folks wouldn't receive, no one would receive the civil penalties up until November 30th. What we will be doing is kind of codifying what they did as action at the board, but also there's a little bit more that we will also be doing. In reference to those folks that were prior to February 24th, that did pay the civil penalty, but may have just paid it just to say, hey, I don't want to deal with this. When they call, it's been instructed by Director Pines that they have reimbursed those folks for those fees. So we would ask that a notification go out to those folks is one of the things that we're asking. And on your desk, you also see some form of reporting, making sure that we understand how many individuals did pay the civil penalty for the deferral period, what notification of reimbursement eligibilities was provided to individuals that did pay that civil penalty. And also we have this thing in reference to the wait time that's going on. So understanding like they are committed, I believe it was the end of March that they said that they would have this thing wrestled with, but also making sure that we keep our foot on the gas and paying attention to it. So these are the things that we would be asking for. There are also other things that they were asking for in Senate Bill 59. One of them was being able to pull things back from CCU, was and them having the authority to be able to pull things back. That was a bill in previous years, but that happened during COVID, so the sunset went into effect, and they never had that authority. We're reestablishing that authority. Being able to do installment plans, obviously they acknowledged that they didn't do installment plans, but also letting them be able to do installment plans. Matt, I know that Director Pines had sent over the language from that standpoint, and there were two things that I wasn't going to take up in his language, and I'll read them verbatim so that everybody understands why that was the case. And
you should have what Director Pine sent over. It looks like a reprint. It's a little bit different from a reprint. And I believe Senator McCray is going to tell you the two pieces in there that, that he
I didn't know it was
disagrees
right
with.
here.
But essentially, I think Senator McCray is okay with the meat of the concept that Director Pine sent over.
Yep, and one of them was, oh, here you go, on page 6, where they're acknowledging clearly identifying the registration plate number and state of the motor vehicle. when I was first drafting this bill and they were asking for this to be done, I couldn't understand why, because I thought that the front or back plate is a better way to have it, and it just protects the consumer from that standpoint. So that's page 6, line 3. And then the last one was, in reference to, it's the last page and it's the last thing. Page 13, where it says, Section 2, and be it further enacted that the authority shall adopt regulations to implement the provisions of this act on or before December 31st, 2023. At the end of the day, they already did the MDTA piece. They already have the ability to do this, so there's no need to adopt regulations 2023. So those were the two things that I thought was just unnecessary, but willing to accept each and everything else that Director Pines had put in his recraft of the bill.
So you said the part about notification that you may be eligible for a refund of a penalty, where's that?
That's not in this piece of it, because this is him working off.
Was
of
it on this piece? Or is it, have we
It's
drafted
something
it yet?
We haven't drafted it as of
Okay,
yet.
but that's what, we want that included there
We
too.
want that included, yes, sir.
Okay, so Matt, everyone understands the concept of that.
So we're not telling them to give the reimbursement to everybody that paid the civil penalty, but we are asking them to notify them and let them know that they are eligible and that they just need to contact MDTA for if they were to get that reimbursement.
Right, and that was because their argument was that
It would affect
some
the
people
trustee, yeah.
might have had other issues
Yeah.
that led to that penalty beyond simply the ones that were created by the system issues. Yeah. Okay. Senator Solly?
First of all, I want to thank my chair and the good senator for being so proactive in this. We know in the 6th District of Baltimore County, it has gotten ridiculous. It's come to a point where we're averaging 15 to 20 calls a day of complaints of people having problems with this system and the changes and the pauses and everything that's happened. So I want to thank you for championing this, and I know it's going to make a difference in my community, and I hope it's going to make a difference in other communities too, so thank you.
Okay, so as completely amended, as been discussed, with the amendment we just talked about a second ago, the amendment minus the 2 points
Yep.
that
The regulation
Senator came
and
up, and then there's one other sheet in here also. Okay? All those in favor of the amended version? What? You want to be a co-sponsor? Yep. Who wants to be a co-sponsor? Raise your hand.
Does anybody not want to be a co-sponsor?
So everybody's on. Okay. All right, 130, this has been on here a while, right? But this goes into the work group, doesn't it? Is this one of those issues that goes into the work group? Yeah, so we're gonna just put that in the work group. That shouldn't probably have been on there. But we will get through that soon. When is that work group meeting? Ah, excellent. All right, 247.
You do have a reprint on your desk for this bill as well. Senate Bill 247 has to do with 3 aspects of the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. The first thing that it deals with is on page 2, basically requiring the department to do a plain language description of their methodology and processes and things like that. The second thing that this bill does is the bottom half of page 2. Right now, currently, property is reassessed every 3 years, except there are a couple of circumstances that authorizes them to reassess it within, in less than 3 years. Particularly to this bill on lines 20 to 21 is if some sort of improvements or renovations have occurred on the house. Back in 2009 is when this $100,000 current law limit it was actually, I think it was 50,000 prior to that, then it was raised to 100,000. This bill would bring it back down to 50,000. So if renovations could add 50,000 or more, then SDAT is authorized to go and reassess the property. Finally, on the last page of the bill, does the third thing, which is basically authorizing any appeal authority, which is defined as any of the levels of various property tax appeals. They need to look at these things. Now, particularly in line 15, the department, as well as confirmed by the attorney generals, that this provision would have violated the Maryland Constitution, so this amendment shows that struck. And then finally, this amendment incorporates a concept that Senator King introduced to the committee. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Senator, or I can. It deals with, basically, there's a timing. If an entity decides they want to appeal any sort of assessment, including, current law includes local governments have that appeal process power. This basically lengthens the time frame in which those appeals need to be made to 150 days after the department would notify a local government if a commercial property's assessment is increased by 20% or more. So it sets up a notification.
Say that
appeal
again for me.
process. So, sorry, me or, want me to say that
Yes,
again?
please.
Okay. All right, so it sets up a requirement that if SDAT reassesses a property that is commercial property and the value of that is going to increase more than 20%, it sets up a notification process where SDAT has to notify the local government entity where the property is located of that decision. I'm sorry, am I saying increasing? It's reducing. If the value is going to be reduced by
Okay, that
more
makes
than
more
20%.
sense.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Usually we talk increases in this committee.
Right, it's just to give, right, so, because a large commercial property could have a significant impact on their budget if
Correct.
it were.
Correct, resulting in reduced revenues.
Got it.
So under that circumstances, then this amendment would give that locality 150 days to determine whether they want to appeal that or not.
How long do they have to appeal it normally?
There's a couple different steps of the appeal, but generally, depending on what category they fit in, 45 days to 30 days. So this would extend that, quite a bit.
Senator King?
This is an amendment that was requested by the city of Gaithersburg.
Gotcha. What was it before? How many months or days?
Generally 45 days,
And this goes up to 150?
correct.
Seems like a lot.
They felt that was what was absolutely necessary.
You have to ask the sponsor.
Senator Jackson?
Senator King, was there any rationale to go from 45 to 150 days? It's not even
The
180
only
days.
rationale I come up with is that that's what the city said that they really felt like it needed to be extended to.
Seems like a lot.
Want to negotiate with them?
Let's, or at least understand the rationale a little better.
Okay, I'll give them a call.
Yeah, let's get more information on that. I want to go back to the second thing this bill did. Could you repeat that again?
Yes. Under certain circumstances, SDAT is authorized to reassess property outside of the normal 3-year cycle. They could do it, anytime.
Right.
And some of those circumstances are listed here on page 2, one of which deals with if the homeowner is doing some sort of,
Right.
renovation or improvement on their house, and if it's projected to add at least a certain value to the property, then SDAT can go ahead and assess it outside of the 3-year cycle. Currently, it requires an increase of $100,000 to the value of the property. This bill reduces that back down to $50,000.
And so that was original to the bill that the Senator Hayes put forward.
Correct.
And do you have information on the logic behind that? I'm going to guess that in a lot of places, $100,000 renovation doesn't happen. I mean, on some
Right.
properties, or well, a lot of properties, quite frankly, in lots of places, but it does, so what was the logic?
So the sponsor's testimony had a sentence in there saying the lowering the minimum value of property improvements trigger a mid-cycle revaluation from 100 to 50,000 to promote economic inclusivity.
Did you have a question? Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that more of a stabilization, so they don't wait the 3 years and then have a significant tax increase? Is that kind of the idea, that it's more of a stable step?
No, I think that's not the history of this provision in the
Okay.
past. It is just, I mean, yes, it authorizes, so if there's a significant increase and SDAT does a mid-assessment, a mid-year assessment to it, then that property increase would certainly be recognized in terms of revenue sooner than if it had waited the full 3-year cycle.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Young?
Yeah, I think 50's pretty low to have them come back and redo your house. Today, at the cost, if you renovate if your basement's unfinished, it's gonna cost you more than $50,000 to finish your basement, and, you're
Depends.
trying to.
Maybe your basement, but you're fancy, Senator.
Yeah. Now, 50,000 is not much
No, it's not.
for that, and somebody trying to fix their house up a little, and immediately they run out and reassess it. I mean, what somebody's gonna end up doing is doing half their basement and wait until the next assessment and doing the other half. Now, I think that's 50,000 in today's dollars on a house is not a lot of money, and I think to have it reassessed right away is pretty much. I mean, if you start it the day your 3 years was up,
The 150
and it took you
days
6
is
months
what
to
it
do
would
it,
for everybody.
you've done your house and you
Not
hardly
on
get a
the
break at
contract.
all for a little while.
Well, what do you mean by get a break? You're not gonna get if it's reassessed.
No, you're not gonna get a break with this.
Right, right.
I'm saying, if you're fixing your house up to that extent, you ought to get a little break.
I don't know if this would be helpful to the committee, but we do have the House bill, which is marked as a cross file, but came in different. The difference being this actually part of it. The House bill didn't deal with this mid-assessment cycle
They left it
issue.
at 100?
As introduced, the bill didn't have it in there.
Oh, their cross was different. It wasn't an exact
Correct.
cross to
It was
begin
not an
with.
exact cross file.
Well, what was in their bill?
The first thing I
100,000.
mentioned in this, nothing. It remained silent, so it left current law of 100,000, because it was never even in the bill.
It was the first part was the common language.
Yeah, plain language.
Plain
And the
language.
Yep, and the second part was about the appeals considerations, and they did make the same change of removing the unconstitutional provision.
What was the appeals part again? Sorry.
So the appeals part was, as any of the appeals entities are looking at it, they can consider various criteria in making its final decision, such as the fair market value, the methodology employed, any depreciation factors, or any other criteria related to the valuation and assessment of the property.
And they couldn't do that before?
I believe they could have, yes.
So it sounds like the House bill then, the crux of it is just the plain language stuff.
Yeah.
The $50,000 mark would encourage you to not to get a building permit.
What's that?
It would encourage you not to even go in for a building permit.
If it went down to 50,000?
If it was only, yeah, if it went up 50,000 and you were gonna get reassessed, I think it would encourage you not to get a building permit, which some people don't do anyhow, but.
What I'm worried about is it has the feel of pushing the assessment sooner, faster on people.
Yeah.
At the higher level, and I can understand how that may be an issue for a local government, but for the homeowner, to switch, and it was that before, right? Was it, it switched back and forth a couple times?
Yeah, in 2009, it was, I have a note on this, let me make sure I'm not misspeaking. In 2009, it was when it was raised from 50,000 to 100,000 in 2009.
Yeah. I tell you what, we've got to get the one issue solved, from Gaithersburg,
I think I got it solved. I got the answer.
okay?
They're saying that because the city, whoops. Because the city does not receive notification from SDAT within 45 days typically, the county gets the notice first, and then the city does not see the property valuations like the counties do. And we discover discrepancies in value late and almost accidentally.
Gotcha. Senator, Craig?
I understand 150 days too now, because it's a common issue. I was dealing with it last week. A person in my district that did significant renovations, and they got that assessment, and she could see it on SDAT, but she couldn't see it on the Department of Finance for the city of Baltimore. And it was a time frame, like, she was really jumping up and down. First, because she had to pay more money, but second, because like the city of Baltimore couldn't get their act together because they wasn't getting
Right.
notification quick enough. So I understand now, because I just dealt with it last week.
I have less problem with that now personally. The other one I'm still struggling with, because I think it's pushing the assessment faster on the people. What I think we ought to do is maybe we can reach out to Senator Hayes. I don't know if he's taking any calls right now, but why he thinks that's particularly a good idea, and we'll come back to that, okay?
Before we leave this, if according to Senator King, what she just said, the logic is, then I would actually recommend a slight change to the amendment. Because if the issue is that a county gets the notice, but maybe not the municipality, then in section C1, right now, there's an or, saying that the department must notify the county or the municipal. That should be changed to an and, so that notification is going out to both places at the same time.
That sounds like an easier solution than to have that length of time. What do you think?
It makes sense to me.
To do with and instead of the length of time? Okay. All right, well, we'll plan to have that amendment to the amendment once we also hear back from Senator Hayes. But I'm really reluctant on that, if you let them know that, why. Okay. 260.
Okay, Senate Bill 260 deals with an issue, it creates, in the circumstances where the state, particularly Department of General Services, gets a broker rebate fee. Right now, they use those fees as part of their operational just expenses. There are circumstances where the fees, they cannot retain the fees outside of, to the next fiscal year. So this creates a special fund so that the fees can go into that special fund, be retained for a following fiscal year to be used by the department, particularly for covering expenses, administrative expenses, and carrying out just their departmental operations.
I'm sorry, it puts it into a fund?
Correct. It puts
So essentially they don't lose it, is what you're
Correct.
saying?
Correct.
How do people feel about this? And it's generated because they've entered in some sort of real estate deal, right?
Yeah,
And
these.
they
sorry.
get part of the money of the fee back in order to make the deal happen.
Yeah, they use a third party to find property. That third party gets a commission, and then this broker rebate thing basically requires a third party to then split that commission
Yep.
between themselves and the state.
Did DGS come in on this?
Yes.
They did?
Yep, absolutely.
They want it? I would assume they would.
Well, I mean, they came in as information.
Yeah, right. You're right. What's that? It is frustrating.
What's the purpose of this, just to make money for general services?
Keep it in there. They're, I guess they essentially are in part of the brokerage agreement in a sense. So they're keeping that for their
Yeah,
department.
the sponsor's testimony indicates, I mean, they currently get these fees right now, but because they don't go into special fund at the end of a fiscal year, if they're not used, they revert back to the general fund. So if a particular
Oh,
deal
okay.
might be happening towards the end of a fiscal year, they don't have an opportunity to use the money.
So the vice chair thinks it's a good idea, he said. What do you want to do then, Mr. Vice Chair?
I move favorable.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, well, you can take it to the floor.
Oh, good. That's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. Just try, keep up.
Can't be that much over the course of time. Yeah, all right. Okay, we've seen this one a couple times. We ready for this yet? Senator Elfreth?
I'm happy to kick us off, Mr. Chair. So,
Please.
we've seen it a couple times. I feel like the amended version of the bill reflects a lot of the input and good discussion we've had in this committee. So the amendments are gonna do 7 things, and I can walk through those things. It removes the energy tax exemption from the bill. It removes the mined lands in definition of brownfield for our friend from Western Maryland. It sunsets the program on December 1st, 2024, which is in line with the community solar program as it stands. It sets the limit on the projects eligible for this exemption to 2 megawatts. There's a separate bill, and I think that separate bill's created some consternation with this bill, that would increase the current community solar program from 2 megawatts to 5 megawatts. So we're ensuring that this kind of carve-out still stays in that 2 megawatt fold. It would grandfather in the properties that would qualify under the program, so they continue to receive the personal property tax benefit moving forward after the sunset. It requires some additional reporting requirements, and it also requires that the PSC set the regulations. Overall, I think it's a very balanced approach to an important measure, which again, I should have said from the beginning, would encourage greater investment in community solar projects that benefit low and moderate income households across the state.
Move favorable.
Senate Bill 272 is a request of the Comptroller. This bill deals with who is allowed to receive tax information. Within the tax general, there's a list of people who the Comptroller is allowed to share tax information with. The bill would add to that list of people who can receive tax information a person or governmental entity authorized by the Comptroller in writing to receive tax information for the purpose of identifying, preventing, or responding to fraud. So the idea is that the Comptroller is going to be able to reach out to other agencies and other individuals who might be investigating tax fraud, and they can share some of the personal, or share some of the tax information that they have.
Okay, how do we feel about this? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay. This one's going to take a little talking, I think.
So, sports betting. It's been a while. Senate Bill 297 is a bill dealing with the exclusion zones. If you'll recall, in last year's sports wagering bill, for the rural casinos, there was a 15-mile exclusion zone, so you couldn't have another sports wagering establishment within 15 miles of the 3 smaller casinos, which are in the rural parts of the county. This bill would take.
And there was a similar one for Baltimore City, right?
Sorry, for everybody else, there was a 1.5-mile radius. So you've got the 3, Ocean Downs, Rocky Gap, and Penn National, Hollywood. They all have a 10-mile exclusion zone.
They said 15.
15, sorry. This bill, so then you've got a 1.5-mile radius for everybody else, that you can't have overlapping licenses. This bill, as it came in, would apply a 10-mile radius for all the Class B1s and B2 licenses. Within, it lists a handful of counties here, Calvert, Carroll, Charles, Frederick, or Washington County. Now, there's 2 sets of amendments that have been submitted. One set of amendments, which came from the sponsor, would make this a purely Frederick bill, so the 10-mile radius would apply only to sports wagering facilities in Frederick County. And then there is also another set of amendments submitted by Senator Huff that would have it apply to Frederick and Carroll County.
So you should also know that Senator Reedy reached out to me today and said that Carroll County very much would like to be included in this, and that he would have a letter sent to us on that, to that degree.
I have no objection to having it be a statewide bill. We put it in for ours, but if everybody wants on it, I don't have a problem with it.
So let me ask you, Matt, about, so it mentions those counties because, is that because those facilities already exist and they the only ones that are in that class that exist now? So in other words, does it in fact hit all those class facilities across the state?
So there's designated and undesignated, so we don't know where those 30 additional Class B licenses are gonna end up in the state.
Right.
With regard to the counties that were listed here, you have Calvert County, which obviously, rod and reel was designated in the original bill, so if Calvert County were to stay in, this would apply to rod and reel. Carroll County has a designated license, that's the Greenmount Station, so that this would apply to the Greenmount Station. Charles County has the Riverboat, so this would apply to the Riverboat in Charles County, and then in addition to any other Class Bs that were to apply there. Frederick, obviously Frederick's got long shots, and then Washington County, they have Rocky Gap, and then I believe they have the Jockey is out in Washington County.
What's the Jockey?
The Jockey is an OTB. It's a smaller bar out there, but it's an OTB in Washington County. I think it moved locations and had a different name a few years back, but yeah. Sorry, Rocky Gap's now, doesn't apply to Rocky Gap at all. They have their 15-mile radius.
So are there any, so is it by the nature of the designation as a Class B that they're listed in there? I guess what I'm wondering are there any that are designated Class Bs that aren't specifically mentioned in this bill?
I'm trying to think. Class Bs. Yes, the Anne Arundel County Class Bs that are designated wouldn't be applicable to this bill. So Bingo World, and I'm trying to think if there are any other out there that.
I'm just curious, so I'm trying to figure out how from a drafting sense, how we got to this place. So would they be included because they're referenced as Class B, even though they themselves are not referenced in the bill?
Yes, none of these entities I'm discussing are actually referenced in the bill. This just applies to Class B licenses in these particular counties. And designated licensees fall into the Class B licenses. You have both designated and undesignated licensees that are all Class Bs.
So, that's Class B too, yeah, Baltimore County. It is a designated
It's a
one.
designated Class B, but Baltimore County isn't part of this, so they would continue to just have their 1.5.
I guess I could ask the sponsor, like, how did you get these other counties in there? Did they ask to be in there, like Charles County and Washington County?
My bill just put in Frederick and Washington County. We were keeping it local, so we didn't get into a whole thing statewide. But to me, actually, it would make sense if you just said within 10 miles of any Class B, because that would include a new one that came in, rather than to have them come back each year if a new one was created.
Now, this bill got Charles County in here too.
Yeah.
Oh, you saying as amended? I'm looking at it as introduced. He introduced it. I was saying, how did these folks get in there as introduced?
Okay. Senator Quarterman.
My understanding, it was, I think what Matt was saying, they were these 5 counties, right, that were those designees in those counties. Essentially, I think they're mostly all OTBs. I think those 5, well, there's the bingo thing, I guess, in Carroll County. I don't know if they have an OTB also.
They do.
But my understanding is these were the counties that had the OTBs, so it was the OTB type thing.
Yeah, but
And
some
since he has an OTB
don't though, because.
Right, some don't that aren't
Baltimore
mentioned.
County is, as Senator points out, at the race, at Timonium, is an
That's an OTB there?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I stand correct on that. Okay.
So, my gut, yes, Senator? Did you get a
I
flag?
did,
you get a
I did,
flag?
but it just feels a little. Not good. So I just want to make sure I understand what we're discussing now, kind of follow up to Senator McCray. Are we discussing the bill, this reprint that I have in front of me, or the bill that's introduced? Because I don't know who's in or out as a part of the discussion we're having.
So that's a good question. I can recap that.
Okay.
So there's 3 options in front of you if you're gonna consider the sponsor's amendment and then the other amendment. The bill as introduced would have applied to Calvert, Carroll, Charles, Frederick, and Washington counties. The amendment being offered by Senator Young would apply it to just Frederick County, and then the amendment being offered by Senator Huff would apply it to Frederick and Carroll County.
Okay, then I guess my follow-up question would be the other counties, Calvert and Charles and Washington, that are being stricken by both sets of amendments that are offered. Are those jurisdictions aware that, because I was looking at the committee testimony and saw a letter of support from some that look like they're being stricken, so I'm just trying to find out why they're being removed.
Yeah, I've talked to the Riverboat. and
That's
they-
where I was going.
Yeah, I think they would like to be included in this,
That's what I thought.
yes. So, yes, Senator.
I'm sorry, I thought I had already pushed the button, I'm sorry. So I represent part of Charles as well as obviously Calvert, you know, it's, Rod and Reel's not the only one down there. You have Abner's and you have Traders or whatever it is.
They're
But,
not Class B, right?
They don't have 200 machines.
right,
Right, they're not Class B.
right. And so, so with them being included to that, I just want to make sure that I'm hearing what this particular piece of legislation, I know when it was introduced, it said one thing. I just want to make sure that,
So I don't know the actual mileage, but I think is Abner's within a 1.5 miles of.
right across
of
the
Rod-
Lake Stonebrew.
Yeah,
So
so,
is Tree or-
so whether it's 10 miles or whether it's 1.5 miles, I think Abner's is out. I don't think, I think they're within the 1.5 mile radius, so extending the exclusion zone to 10 miles isn't gonna make a difference for
Right.
them.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing it right. I've got 3 distinctly boisterous counties.
I'm not sure where the other location is. I think they're clustered there, though.
Yeah,
I'm not-
they're right there. So
So where I'm leaning at the moment personally
then you get,
is that we have heard from the legislative leadership from each of the, from Frederick and from Carroll. And we'll get a letter from Carroll, because they're sending it, and, what's that? We got a letter from Carroll? Okay. I'm kind of sensing that we should probably check in with the other legislative teams. Charles and Calvert. Well, you share one of those jurisdictions, you probably wanna. I don't know.
touch my part of Charles, but I'm part of Charles County delegation, and in Calvert County, the 3 locations are in my side of, but Jack Bailey's here as well. So, the northern part, they're in Chesapeake Beach,
Right.
which is in 27.
Washington wasn't in there?
Washington County was in there. Washington County hasn't submitted any support for or against.
You want to be taken out?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep, that's right. Forgot he told me that.
okay. Well, look, if the people who represent those areas, he wants to be out. Well, yeah, you don't want to be defined by the 10-mile.
Correct.
Okay, I think I'm okay with moving forward with striking Washington County, as long as everybody else is feeling good about that. Does anybody have any thoughts? I really want to think about what we're doing here.
I feel great.
You feel great. He's happy-go-lucky tonight, isn't he?
How are we talking about now? Leave version 1, 2, 3, or 4?
It's none of the ones before us. It is the bill as it came in with Washington County struck. Okay? I mean, if you're uncomfortable with something, you want to question?
Yeah, no, I mean, if
Certainly.
the other people didn't ask to be struck and they knew they were in, then that makes sense, right?
Okay. Okay. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Who's the lucky one who's gonna get this? Sponsor. Is that too young? All right. Another Senator Elfrith, one that needed work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, it needed work. We had a couple different iterations. I'd like to thank Senator Griffith and Erica for Erica's patience and Senator Griffith's ideas. We thought we had a solution, and we ran it by the House, and it was a no-go. So we might have to go back to the drawing board. So if I could ask to hold it again,
Oh, okay,
thank you.
okay, very good. Okay, more jobs for Marylanders. Sounds good. I think that's what it is essentially, right? This is just the
I
extension
did
of
not, I
sunset?
didn't hear what she said, but yes, it extends it for 5 additional years. And it does make a correction that basically money that is provided for these benefits goes into a special fund. It used to be that the amount of money that had to go there would be based on the initial tax credit certificates. Instead, this bill would change it to the final tax credit certificates, which of course is a more definite, like known actual cost. So it extends the sunset and makes that tweak.
And what's the ongoing cost of this program?
The fiscal note indicates that by fiscal 2027, it's about $23.8 million in general fund expenditures. It would, the cost would extend beyond that because it is a 10-year benefit program.
Discussion? Senator Roosevelt?
I got a lot more information after the hearing about the status of how it's been working. Mask here, sorry about that.
Yeah, well, we've all been eating, so
I
we
know,
know.
sorry about that.
Speaking of which, anybody go back to the kitchen if you need more, because we got a lot.
So what I was going to say was, I think this is an okay program and not a great program. I think it has not had the geographic distributional effects that I think people were hoping early on, as I recall. And it's not it's good. I'm not saying it's not good. It's just not very big or I don't think it's game changing. The other thing is, there were requirements in the law that all of these employers had as significant training components. And when they did provide us information of the training they're doing. And they're doing enough training that the workers are doing okay, I guess, but it's not a material initiative in terms of really upgrading our manufacturing workforce. So I'm not against it. I think it's fine to continue it. It wouldn't break my heart if we maybe extended it 3 years instead of 5 years or something like that. Those are my thoughts.
I think we need to, this is one we might need to just do.
That's fine.
Senator Quarterman?
I appreciate the comments by the vice chair as far as how it's actually been utilized and whatnot. And, my understanding was predated me, but I'm familiar obviously with the program, and a lot of the focus was on the tier 1 counties per se. And so, if we want to focus on the tier 1s, I have no objection to that either, but I don't know how that's going to go over, so to speak. But I think that's a way that you could really incentivize it into those particular areas. But
There's always next year if we need to make some tweaks to it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're doing good, folks. We're doing good.
We have another list for tomorrow morning, or is this it?
We'll see.
We're doing great. We're doing great.
We'll see. All right, 480.
Yep. Senate Bill 480, I'm not aware of amendments, so there's no reprint on your desk, but you can pull it up on your computer. Primarily, this does two things, and I'll just say from the start, neither of which are a mandate. The first one is it creates two new programs. One is the Stabilization Grant Program. This would be for child care providers who are in danger of closing within 12 months. MSD would have to develop any criteria, processes, award amounts. It does limit the award amounts to be anywhere between $1,000 or $35,000. So that's that bill, or sorry, that portion of it. The next program that it creates is an expansion grant program, which would provide grants to child care providers for staff training, background checks, supplies, as well as some capital costs. Again, the department would have to establish criteria. This does establish a limit of the awards to be between $3,000 up to $50,000 per recipient, and it is also not a mandate. There is one suggested amendment that I would suggest is on page 1 of the bill, where the bottom of the line, the bottom of the page, it talks about a child care center that's in danger of closing in the next 12 months. In terms of our drafting style, it's probably better to stay away from that, because if you're looking at this bill 5 years from now in statute, well, what does in the next 12 months mean? So potentially, a possible suggestion is to actually put in here before July 1, 2023, which is 12 months after the effective date of the bill. So that's just a thought for your consideration.
So, Senator King, we haven't gotten to yours yet, have we? Have we heard it yet? Your big child care bill? Did we hear it already? No.
Which one? There's a few. If you're talking about Senate Bill 806, I don't believe that has been heard yet, but I can double check.
There's one with a significant price tag, as I recall. Was it like 30 million? 20 or 30 million?
Oh, the child tax
Okay, so yeah, the Senate Bill 806, that is the one that deals about bonuses for employees and providers. That one is 16 million in 2024 only. So that's one of them.
I feel like there's an ongoing one.
There is another one, I just need to look at my list. It's not off the top of my head at the moment.
I don't think we've heard it. Yes. Senator Salling?
You said that it's not a mandate, but it does establish a mandate in 24?
No.
No, it does not, okay, because that's
no.
what it says.
No, in both of them, the fiscal note says that?
So the fiscal summary does establish it in 2024.
It sure does, but it's, the language just says the governor shall include in the annual budget an appropriation to the program, but there's no way of calculating what the number of recipients would be. As well as,
Which bill are we talking about? The one before us?
the one before you, Senate Bill 480.
480.
Yeah, the fiscal note does indicate that. I would not agree with that.
It's just on
I
it.
agree with a lot of them too,
It,
but it does say that.
It does, yes.
These are new programs, right?
Yes, these are two brand-new programs.
These are two brand-new programs. And I'm sorry, did you find the one yet, the bigger one?
Still looking, I'm up in the 700s
Okay.
now. Yeah, it was a brand-new one. Yes, you just got one out of rules, Senate Bill 919.
Okay.
So I don't have a fiscal note on that one yet, but that,
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I don't wanna, since we got all of them together. I think 919 is the one that's gonna be pricey.
thanks, Kim.
Okay, so we're holding, the Hester bill.
Small business work group.
What did? Oh, the one that
This one, the childcare.
Yeah, yeah.
Stabilization, because that was one of the issues that we talked about in that group, that small business, not only for the business of daycare, but for other small businesses. Daycare was a real important piece of that puzzle.
Right. Okay, very good. Well, we'll take them up when we have all of them together.
Okay.
Okay? 560.
Okay, 560. This one you do have a reprint on your desk. That looks the same as the last time you all looked at this bill. I think that was Tuesday. This deals with the Medco owned properties used for, at our colleges for residents, students to live in. So the one before you, just as a reminder, does some changing to include the word occupancy agreement as opposed to residential lease. And I believe you all had just some discussions with the department as well as USM, because what the bill does is the first part is just putting in a, a prominent conspicuous reference, the fact that the corporation is the owner of it and not USM. And then the second part of the bill is what dealt with that if a university system in Maryland closes for health or safety emergency, then the corporation needs to kind of give the same release out of their leases as is used for student housing that is owned by the campus.
The reprint? Yeah. We don't seem to have the reprint.
Oh, okay.
So does the reprint include some of the things that we talked about?
No.
Okay, so, I think we heard from Medco and the university. We heard about the complications of allowing for the, or requiring the closure of the Medco buildings when there is a closure of the university dormitories. I'm going to suggest that we take that part out of it. And I would also suggest that we beef up the notification within the contract that actually requires the signer to initial by the fact that they in fact are in a different housing and that they would be, language that would say something along the lines of, if dormitories are closed on campus, you will still be obligated to this contract because you are not in, or something along those lines. We talked about this offline.
Yeah. And what I did provide to you all is I got a sample in researching after my discussion with the chair. I did get a sample lease from Medco and put that on your desk. And I did just mark it up with some, underlinings of provisions that exist, at least in this sample, that kind of deal with this. So, and you can see they do put a cover page on it that has the upfront statement of, this is owned by Medco, not the university. So, if you would want what you just suggested on the cover page as opposed to buried in a contract.
Yes.
And require an initial.
Yes,
Okay.
Senator?
I agree, because again, I don't think the average Marylander understands the difference. And so we have to expressly say, in the case of X, this does not, exactly what happened or would not happen, and God forbid in the future. I think that has to be on the front cover and initialed. I still don't love the solution because I don't want to see more students and families hurt in the future, but if this is a decent step forward, and I appreciate it.
Senator Zucker?
Thank you. Erica, I remember in the hearing, they said that something's gonna affect their bond rating. Is that addressed in, like, one, really didn't understand what they were talking about, and two is, does the amended bill, does that take care of that?
Yeah, under the chair's suggestion of removing the second half of the bill, which requires the concomitant treatment of closing them, that is the portion that Medco was concerned with. They were perfectly fine with the first provision of, the clear notification of ownership.
I think they were basically saying, because they've got bonds on it, because they're not the university, which they seem to suggest, which also bonds things, right? But they're not as big as and can't spread out their losses, as if you will, that it potentially creates a problem for those kinds of bonds. Senator Rosenfeld.
Yeah, I mean, I generally think that's the way to go. I do think, looking at this notice, which if I looked at it a year and a half ago, I forgot about it. This notice is really confusing. And the thing that's really confusing about it is they use the term university-affiliated housing. I know from going through the process is nobody could figure out what the hell that meant and what Medco was and what Capstone was. I mean, I think the disclosure should say, this is privately owned housing. It is not university housing. I think that's the critical thing, because I mean, I know all the buildings there, and they're private buildings and they're university buildings, and this is on university land, and it looks like university buildings, and they have residence assistants, so it's very confusing to people. So I think that's the critical thing, is to get away from this university affiliated and say, this is private housing. It is on university land, but it's private housing. That'd be my suggestion.
Do you think, Erica, you can work with them to try to
Work with Medco, absolutely, yeah.
come with a piece of language on that? Senator Jackson?
Yeah, I echo the sentiments of Senator Rosepep. You know, I mean, look, when you look at your public schools and your private schools or institutions, they say, you know, if the county government closes, our institution doesn't typically do that. I mean, there are blanket statements that, you know, you put your kid in a certain school, it says that we don't follow the same schedule as.
Yeah.
And I just think that to have them sit here the other day and say, I mean, we went through this, these folks, and they were looking out for their interests. But I think, you know, we have to be explicit because they're not going to be, you know,
So
very disingenuous.
I know I just laid a, 20-page document on your desk with some hidden underlines in it. There are provisions embedded in the contract that says, but I think that's the committee's issue, is that they're embedded in the contract. But there are provisions that say, no matter what, you are still, required to pay the full amount if you vacate, Actually, typically, it actually says, if the tenant abandons the premises or vacates it voluntarily or involuntary, unless they're able to re-let the property, the tenant is still liable for the full year's amount. But that's, that's inside the contract.
Yeah, I mean, I think that needs to go with what Senator Rosepep is saying, all on the front.
Okay.
Okay? So with those essentially two amendments, one striking the second provisions entirely, and the other reworking the notification in the first. Senator Alfred?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm just still not here, particularly, this mostly dealt with College Park and Towson, and Towson University's housing is, you cannot tell the difference, and the students do not have a choice. When they want on-campus housing and there's so little of it available, they bite at that first apple and they're gonna say yes. And I appreciate the system's concern about the debt capacity, and if it's, the two are too closely linked, automatically the bond agencies will feel like it's a university property. I wondered, though, if we do have another situation as we had, we each had to fight individually tooth and nail with Medco on behalf of our individual constituents to find resolution. Is there a way that that Medco can report back to this committee or something if we have this situation again? I would like some type of proactive reporting to us so we can weigh in instead of the sporadic, going to bat for our constituents one at a time in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know if that's possible, but I don't know.
I'm trying to understand exactly what that might look like.
Yeah.
Right.
Senator Rosepep?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it looks like either, but I would say what really happened was that the only people who got off the hook were the people who filed
fought, yeah.
lawsuits. I mean, they collected from everybody else. It's only the people who, and so in reality, they were pretty much kept whole. Medco was kept whole. And they just waited out the clock, which was a good strategy for them. But I think there's a little bit of, if we're not gonna say that they have to follow along with what the university does, I think we're kind of stuck with, it really is more like private housing. But that's why I would say, I think it needs to be on the contract, but I would also say it ought to be on the building. I mean, you're right, College Park is like that too. It looks like it's regular old university housing. And I think they could change signage on that too, to make it clear to people who live there all the time and are looking at places. This is not university housing. Because I think what Senator Alpha is saying is exactly right.
I don't want to hold the bill, Mr. Chair. I just want to think about if there's a more proactive way that Medco could tell us when this is happening, and we
Right.
can have an opportunity to intervene on behalf of our constituents in a collective manner instead of those with privilege being able to pursue litigation.
Right.
A lot of
Well,
families were
Yeah, no, I mean, no, we all experienced it, and it is a little frustrating situation to be in. But wouldn't we know as soon as the university decided to close?
I guess then we could call Medco to the table and try to,
Yeah, I mean, I think it took a while for us to understand, I think that's the problem in particular this time. It took us a while to figure out the distinction, we didn't realize it.
yeah. I'm not gonna hold it up. I'd like to continue thinking about it, but I don't wanna slow the train down.
Yeah, yeah.
What- Mr. Chair, if I might,
Yeah.
one issue it does raise, though, is going forward, whether there ought to be different rules regarding this as if universities build additional housing of this type, that they need to think about this ahead of time in terms of differentiating. That might be another way to look at what Senator Elford said.
Yeah. Well, it may be a topic for another year, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully, we're
agree.
not gonna
That's fine.
find,
That's fine.
hopefully, we're not gonna find ourselves in this situation.
I tend to agree.
I
tend to
know.
agree. And this was
Yeah,
kind of
that's
a
fair.
100-year flood.
Yeah, let's hope. Yeah, sure,
Senator Serafini has a PowerPoint he'd like to show us.
yes. Your vote's no good here. That's right. Oh, did you they put out the pies? Yeah. Senator Serafini, thank you so much. On behalf of the committee, there's pies back there. There's some pizza back there if you'd like to have some too. Welcome. It's good to see you. We miss your wisdom.
And your humor.
Just to be clear, you're striking the second half. Do you want to accept the amendments offered by Medco for the first half of using the phrase occupancy agreement as opposed to rental lease?
I don't know what the significance of that is either.
I think it's just the term that they use, and they say because of rental, an occupancy agreement, it could be a lease, it could be a license, it could be a housing contract, so I guess they, as I'm reading this, it's like they kind of maybe might use different terms depending on the arrangement, and it's not always the term of residential lease.
Senator Alford, don't step out yet. Just 1 second, because I want to, you know, I'm fine with that. You know, if we take another day and maybe we reach out to them and we ask them about the notification of future buildings or the design of future buildings, that there be something to distinguish it from.
Yeah, on campus.
Let's ask them whether they can do that and we can add that in. It's just, to me, it's just a matter of a different signage. It should be reasonable and easy. Let's ask him, and we'll hold on this until we get that answer. Okay?
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna hold the next one. Senator Alford?
You were trying to escape the tough votes, we know that.
Right, this is a joint committee on pensions bill.
Senate Bill 566, we briefly discussed this the other day. This is a Joint Committee on Pensions bill. It's codifying the consideration of climate risk as a fiduciary responsibility of the system. It sets forth a number of practices and data collection procedures, and also setting the system on a path to start considering addressing the risks to the system investments and also seeking out investment opportunities. And with the codification of the fiduciary duty in state code, it insulates the system from any changes that have been happening at the federal level.
Okay, it's a good bill.
Great.
Senator?
I do think it's a great bill. I think it's a balanced bill. We worked, and Philip worked very closely with the system to make sure they were comfortable with all the provisions. Again, it's a codification of practices that they already started under Treasurer Kopp. And I want to reemphasize Philip's point about with every kind of new presidential administration, we get swings in federal recommendations and policy. And so this would ensure that Maryland stays on this path. Again, it's about the sustainability of the system. It is It is not picking out industries, it is not picking out companies. It is an overarching statement that we need to consider climate risk as our fiduciary risk, particularly considering how vulnerable Maryland is to that climate risk. And I ask for,
Yep, and appreciate the fact that folks got together afterwards and talked through it, and some look like they're gonna make it, some not, and that's okay. All right, is there a motion?
Favorable.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Got it, Kim? Okay. Very good. Okay. What are you laughing at? He's off again. All right, 597.
Senate Bill 597 is an income tax bill. This is the theatrical production tax credit. So same idea as the film production tax credit, only this is going to apply to in-person like plays and musicals. It's a 25%. You get a refundable credit for 25% of the qualified theatrical production costs. And so the bill lists out the type of costs that are eligible. They track pretty well with what the film tax credit provides. And then it authorizes the issuance of up to $10 million per year in tax credits.
Okay, you all have heard this one a number of times. This is the first time I've actually asked you to vote for it. And I held back because, sort of the troubles we've been through. But the troubles that we've been through, they've been through too, as an entertainment industry. What I'm going to suggest, though, is that we amend it to be only $6 million. What that will allow effectively is for the production of, it depends, but sort of if in big scale production sense, it could help with 3 productions. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I have one question.
Yes. Okay, we can do that. Who wants to be a co-sponsor?
Oh, who doesn't want to be on? Everybody.
Everybody want on? Okay,
I still have a question.
I still will answer it.
Okay. Is this first come, first serve, or how do they choose who gets it?
I believe it is first come, first served.
Yes, they would,
Yeah, and as you may recall, the 2 companies that do the vast majority of production are Maryland companies.
I know,
Yeah, across the country. It's amazing. It really is kind of amazing. And that they've never done work here is just shocking on many levels.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So they absolutely want to, and when they do their work, which is also really kind of useful, they do their work typically in the summer, because the summers are the downtimes for the actual shows to be happening. But of course, the Hippodrome already had space for developing production, but we've invested as a state with an annex at the Hippodrome, which will allow for additional ability to add to their production ability. So, Senator?
Yeah, Prince George's Community College that, testified at the hearing. I actually saw the production that they referenced, one of the last productions that happened at their Performing Arts Center of The Color Purple. But they actually testified that they had to leave the state because there just weren't resources available to assist them with these kinds of costs, so.
Right. Yep,
Important bill.
Yep.
Be coming in for one for Salisbury, so stay tuned next year.
Okay. 598.
Senate Bill 598 is the income tax work opportunity tax credit bill. This bill creates a non-refundable credit that piggybacks off of the federal work opportunity tax credit so that you could receive a 100% basically it doubles what you get the federal credit and then you get the same amount at the state level. Just for some background here, the federal credit gives you, what is it? Employers can claim a credit equal to 40% of the first $6,000 of wages paid to certain employees who meet hardship categories. These are people who have faced barriers to employment, and there's the categories of the types of individuals that you need to employ in order to be eligible are listed in the fiscal note. You have a reprint in front of you. It corrects some drafting errors and also makes some modest changes to the bill. These are the amendments that the House adopted. The House has passed this bill, and I think the sponsor here is generally supportive of considering these amendments. The first one prevents an employer from claiming there's an existing subtraction modification for these types of wages. So either this will prevent you from claiming the subtraction modification if you take the credit. You don't get the subtraction modification and the credit. The second one makes clear that the credit is limited to employees that are employed in the state. There are some national employers that could have state tax liability, but not necessarily employing in-state residents. This just makes sure that the employees that you claim it for are in the state of Maryland. Third, this one reduces the value of the credit to 50% of the federal credit instead of 100%. This was, I believe, done just to try and bring the fiscal note down a little bit. And then finally, the amendments authorize nonprofit entities to participate in the program. Nonprofits don't usually have income tax liability, but they do employ individuals, and in some cases do employ a significant number of individuals who meet these targeted categories. And so this would allow the nonprofits to claim the credit against the employment taxes that they remit to the Comptroller.
Move favorable.
Sure. Yes, go ahead.
One question, what does it bring the fiscal note down to?
Cuts it in half.
Should cut it in half.
So we're talking about 40 million?
Yeah, the fiscal note's 75, I guess, on an ongoing basis, 75 to 80, so, yeah.
75 million a year?
That's correct.
That's a lot. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot.
Senator Zucker wanted to be on. Anybody else?
I'm happy to be on. I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Get Senator Young.
What's that?
Yes, are we gonna have some explaining to do?
About the cost? Yeah, look, so the House has already passed it. Yeah,
SB 598. Yeah, I've got it.
the House bill. Do you have the House number?
Oh, sorry, House bill is 2.
So look, I believe ultimately this will be part of a larger package. I'm hopeful that we work out with the governor and goes into the whole plan that hopefully very soon we're going to be closer to completely understanding. I'm going to be able to share with you. Meetings are going on over the next couple days, just so you know. You know that this was, we've got a lot of stuff on the table and a lot of money that's still tied up in the rainy day fund. The whole package, if we move forward, and it includes lots of different things, parts of the governor's plan, all to be still nailed down, quite frankly, but all of which is completely within what I believe is responsible budgetarily, given where we are. That's about the best I can tell you right now. Yes.
Is there a sunset on it?
I don't think there is either.
Oh, there is,
Oh.
7 years.
7 years. There you go.
I think it's good to keep a sunset on it.
There you go. There you go. Okay, this is actually one of the times where the administration actually came in and said they supported it. What's that?
So you got that in writing, do you?
Yeah, I think Kiefer wrote the note himself.
Um,
Is that in the file?
Not in my
Kiefer's
file.
testimony in there?
It's on tape.
Should
No, I'm pretty sure he,
Can we get a copy of that?
Sure.
Seriously, I appreciate your comments. You know, this is a pretty big, I know we got a lot of money to work with, and we need to help as many people as we can help.
right.
It would be nice if we could have this package all together before we made a decision on this. Based on what you just said, if you show us a copy of that from the administration, I can support it at this time, pending whatever y'all come up with that's gonna help a lot of other people out.
Yep.
Senator Zucker may have found it.
Mr. Chairman, it's in Senator Edwards' inbox right now. I just forwarded it. It's in the floor system. I can read you a passage, but it's there.
Why don't you read us all a passage?
Huh?
Why don't you read us all a passage while we're here?
Responsive reading.
Let me go pull it back up. It says, first, please convey my best wishes to Senator Edwards. That's interesting. It says that.
Yeah, sure enough, right there. First sentence.
I'm not making this up. It's just right there. It's crazy. And so it says, if enacted, Senate Bill 598, and this is not my word, this is coming from the governor's office, will help business hire more effectively and reduce their administrative costs by aligning the WOTC with the proposed state tax credit. Research has shown that targeted wage subsidies, including the WOTC, are among the most effective labor market policies for expanding work opportunities. It says, yeah, so I mean, it's position support, and during a time when employers are facing historic workforce shortages, it is critical that we do everything in our power to assist businesses with their ability to hire. Expanding the WOTC to apply to employers' state income tax will not only assist businesses with the cost of hiring and training employees, but also incentivize hiring individuals that have had difficulties finding employment. If you have any further questions or would like to discuss this testimony further, please do not hesitate to contact me at, and Kiefer Mitchell gives his email address and his phone number.
Well, I appreciate the fact you used my name in the first sentence. That really made my night. But still, we got a long ways to go, I think, in a short period of time. We need to do some other tax relief for other people, and I look forward to see whatever you put together, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Very good. Senator Eckert.
Every amount we spend before we even get to our tax committee takes away from what we have to play with in the next round, so that's my only concern.
You know I've kept track of it.
I know, you're keeping track of it, thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion
Yep.
with the amendments?
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor? Oh, and somebody wanted one. Did everybody want one? No. Who wants one? Hands up.
Oh. We've got Zucker, Young, Jackson, Griffith, Rosapap, Elfrith, King, McCray. Miss anybody?
Okay.
Senator Freeney was here.
Okay, so all in favor is amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good.
Last but not least.
Yeah. I'd say resilient Maryland, oh, okay. 814.
Senate Bill 814 is the Resilient Maryland Revolving Loan Fund Alterations Bill. This was a special fund that was created during the last session And this bill would tweak the authorized uses of the fund. You should have a reprint in front of you. I think the draft as it came out wasn't quite what the senator expected, and so there were some amendments that I think were making the bill more workable. The amendments would take out the involvement of the Department of Housing and Community Development and have the Department of Emergency Management be the entity that would be, they administer the funds, so they would be the one that would be making these loans. But the meat of it is that it's authorizing these loans to go to local governments, and then local governments, there's a list of uses that the local government can use these funds for. One of the things the bill seems to focus on is the local governments are now going to be able to then loan this money out to private property owners who can then make these resiliency upgrades to their private property. And then there's a process in here, and this was something that I think the senator wanted to make clear was it authorizes these local governments to then forgive these loans if the recipient of the loans meet certain income eligibility requirements. So it's really opening up this fund to more uses than what was passed last year when the fund was created.
So is this a broader fund, or was this directly, this wasn't the 25 million that we put down in capital, that populated that fund, right?
Correct. That money was never used last year. I think there were some issues with, the idea was the Storm Act, and the money was gonna be sort of seed money to access these grants at the federal level. I think there's been some delays with the Storm Act and the funding and being able to use this money to access those federal grants. That authorization is still here. They can still use that money to access those federal grants. But this is giving it an additional use so that the money's not just sitting there while everything's tied up, I guess, at the federal level, waiting for the Storm Act money to become available, is how I understood it.
So it's not sitting there tied up while
So like last year, there was it 25 million went into this fund, and
90-10.
Because of delays, I think at the federal level, there was no use of the money. So this year, when the capital budget came in, it deauthorized that 25 million and then reauthorized another 25 million. And I think the idea with this bill is saying, look, if you're not able to use it to meet these matches for the Storm Act money, here's some other additional uses to use the money for. And so one of them now are.
But it doesn't require the use of it.
No.
It would all be subject to the governor's.
This is all authorizing, correct?
Senator Edwards?
So is this the one that, if my memory's correct, she said something about 8-to-1 return or 9-to-1 return?
9-to-1.
or somewhere in that
Yeah.
category. So what happens if the federal money doesn't come or isn't available?
Then I think the idea is that you would then start
use
using it.
25 and that's it, though?
Yeah, you would start using it to hand out these
No
loans.
additional money to the 25 we allocated last year?
What's that?
The only money in the pot is what we allocated last year. This is not asking for more money for the
Right,
coming year.
there's no additional money
Right.
through this bill.
I got you. Thank you.
Senator Young?
Do we have any other programs where the state makes a loan and the county decides whether you have to pay it back or not? And if it's not gonna be paid back, why are we calling it a loan?
Yeah, that hit my ear too. How can the county get rid of the,
I've just never heard of any other program where state funds the money and the county decides whether you pay it back or not.
It's new to me too, Senator.
That's an innovation.
Okay, I mean, I don't think we're gonna vote on this, but, but that's a good, I mean, I think we need to answer that question. That's an interesting, situation. Senator Alfred?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I believe this is Senator Hester's, she had obviously Ellicott City in mind with this bill, and I have similar challenges in my own district. Matt, because we passed this original bill last year, that money is now in the capital budget. How is it, what's the trigger for distribution of that money?
Well, so the money from last year is now being deauthorized. They're reauthorizing another 25. That 25 is going to become available on July 1st. That money would be available to the fund July 1st, and then it would be up to the Department of Emergency Management to
Okay.
administer it and decide that they're going to start using it for these types of loans,
Okay,
if that's what they're going to use it for.
okay. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I very much support this bill. I would love to think a little more about the mechanics, if that's okay.
Yep.
And to Senator Young's question, I don't know if this confuses it more or identifies an issue here, but the loans, as I read it, on page 2 of the bill, are going to the local governments. And then the local governments are loaning the money out to private property owners. It's that loan to the private property owners that is then being forgiven. I'm not sure whether do the local governments still remain on the hook for the money that's being borrowed from the fund?
I just think that kind of thing's important to know. We don't start some weird precedent. I mean, if it's an outright grant, then that's one thing, but
Right,
Right,
to work all this in it.
agreed.
okay.
Senator Alfred?
Nope, I appreciate the conversation, and
Okay.
we'll look at it.
Well, we did it under time,
Yeah.
yes? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. We are not.
Hey, okay.
We're off tomorrow morning. You're free. Sleep in.
No, that's in Anne Arundel.
Are you flashing still for a reason?
Celebrating 8 a.m. delegation meetings. No, Mr. Chair, the EHE finished with the parks bill that they were second on
Yes,
about an hour and a half ago.
Yes.
And there were a few small amendments. And
yes,
since we're not voting tomorrow, I was hoping if Matt agrees, we could take it up now.
fine.
They were very small amendments, and I left my file. Let me think here. Senator Ellis added an amendment to require, if the state acquires land near Waldorf to build a park, they're gonna think about doing it as the General Assembly intends for the department to think about doing it as a partnership park. Senator Hester had an amendment. If you'll recall, there's $70 million going into this one fund that directs how the 70 million is going to be used. There's another 10 million that's left to the discretion of the department. On that $10 million, Senator Hester asked to add some language that said that the $10 million could be used, including land activation and new structures. And then there was Senator Elfreth offered an amendment in EHE. This was more of just a timing issue. And it makes clear that, that the Department of Budget and Management needs to add 100 new pins. They can't just instruct DNR to basically cobble together all the pins for the additional officers from the rest of the department. It's going to require new pins over and above what is currently in existence within DNR. And I believe I hit all of them?
Those are the three, yep.
Okay. There's a $12 million mandate in there, but the mandate was assumed by the fiscal note, because the fiscal note assumed that there would be $100 million additional pins. This idea.
Not 100 million.
Oh, Senator Hester, sorry.
I gave two parts to it, I ain't quite heard the full part of the second.
Oh, land activation and structures.
And structures.
Land, it was new to me too. April Morton said it's a term that's used in the park world. And it's the idea of you've got empty park land that's intended to become a park here at some point. There's some costs associated with, you got a field, you wanna put a trail in it, that's land activation, is turning whatever, empty property into a state park. Turn state forest into a state park.
Senator Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first amendment you talked about, you said that if there is a park built in or around Waldorf is, if Waldorf is like, the zip code has like 75,000 people, but they're not incorporated. And there are some zip codes that are in my particular district, and obviously I'm just hearing about this. But I'd be interested to find out how that works in and around Waldorf. What does that mean?
I can show it to you.
Senator Elfrith, do you have the amendment?
I
can
have
get
the
it. I can
writing
get
of the amendment.
My file. He defines around Waldorf, Senator Ellis does. There's 4 barriers that didn't mean it. They were
Did that
land
make it?
markings or
Probably
roads
28.
or something. I can grab my file.
If-
You can do
yeah.
sports betting all around.
Senator Ellis originally wanted to offer about a 5-page amendment, and we were able to talk this afternoon, and I wanted to talk to you about it. And instead, because the land he is looking to make a park is not yet acquired, we couldn't make it a park in the bill. So we added intent language that if it is acquired, that it could become a partnership park.
Was it the same developer that said the other day?
I don't actually know the developer.
I've got it. It's the area that's bounded by north of Billingsley Road, south of Mattawoman Creek, east of Bensville Road, and then west of Maryland Route 5.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's 20.
That's the amendment they passed, and not the amendment he offered earlier today.
This was the one you agreed to.
Okay,
Yeah. The intent.
the intent.
Are we holding or folding?
What,
You wanna get
what,
comfortable?
what,
Yeah. That's fine. No, no, I want you to be comfortable.
you can get him a copy?
I'll get a copy.
Yes, Senator. Yes. Yes.
No, I was just waving.
Oh, you just I see.
Trying it out.
I
I
see.
surrender.
You surrender. Well, we did, we did good work
No,
tonight.
this is to not have to come at 9.
Yeah. Senator Edwards? she's, Senator Edwards is trying to,
Well, since we're not voting tomorrow morning, if you get up early enough, y'all can come out to the Westin and have a good breakfast.
there you go, there you go. I don't know. I'd like to get this moving if we could. I understand it's been sprung on you. I don't appreciate your situation.
So my concern is being a part of a delegation that hasn't seen this.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm not gonna sit here and sign on to something and have a meeting tomorrow morning with my delegation. And all of a sudden, again, I'm not opposed to a project, but typically local government has to weigh in because who's gonna do the upkeeping of it?
Guys, yes, I can't hear.
So, you know, typically, if I'm
Can you move up to the mic maybe?
if I'm understanding correctly, you know, typically local government will weigh in on something like this, and I'm carrying most of that county's legislation, and this is not a part of that package. That's all. So, just have a little bit of concern.
How about we do this? This isn't going to go to the floor until next week anyway. How about we vote on it tonight? There's a problem, we'll readdress the problem as soon as we can. And if we have to do just a quick, pull everybody to the side to vote kind of thing, if we have to, we'll do that. How's that sound? Okay. So, as amended, including this piece, right, including this piece.
Favorable.
Favorable, all right? All is in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, so you're gonna have that discussion tomorrow, Senator Jackson? You have that discussion tomorrow? Okay, good. Senator Solling? Oh, right. Who's on this bill?
I believe I already had it.
Am I on this bill?
Senator Solomon.
I think we're all on it, aren't we?
Really? Give me.
All right, great job tonight, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you for dinner.
spending the evening together.
Yeah, Edward.